In the FGC, it's not common that a game is able to bounce back from the brink of death. Tournament organizers and players may absolutely love a particular game, but for many, it's not easy to justify hosting brackets and dumping resources into something that won't bring in players or viewers. While some tournaments like Combo Breaker have created a home for many less popular titles, by and large, the majors that comprise the North American FGC circuit tend to follow the numbers. So in January of 2018, when it was revealed that the newly released Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was not going to be on the main stage at EVO, many competitors and casual fans alike took that as a sign that the game was as good as done. In our last video on the topic, we covered what was wrong with MVCI, the mass exodus of players that followed its release, and the return of many to previous titles in the series. But as I'm sure many of you are surprised to hear, the story didn't end there. Despite the game's flaws, a community of dedicated players continued to stand by Marvel Infinite. These fans were resolute that despite the game's cosmetic flaws, the omitted characters, and the lack of popularity, that MVCI's core mechanics and smooth gameplay were enough to warrant building a scene around it. Through sheer grit and determination, MVCI has managed to survive in the shadows for more than 2 years and is looking to make a most unexpected comeback. This is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite: Life After Death. Before we dive feet first into MVCI, let's recap the game's history up until this point. Prior to January of 2018, many longtime Marvel players were still engaged with the game, with many of the biggest names in Marvel history taking part in the Battle for the Stones tournament series a month earlier. However, once the call went out that the game wouldn't be at EVO and Marvel was dead, most players abandoned ship and moved on to new titles like Dragon Ball FighterZ.
So that kind of left MVCI with a brand new community, with like brand new faces. Obviously, there were some exceptions. I played both games. A lot of other names that played both Marvel 3 and MVCI, they stuck with both of those games. But MVCI kind of got basically a brand new community, kind of the same way people would consider maybe Smash Ultimate and Smash Melee. They were almost two different groups of people.
Pretty quickly, it became clear that tournament organizers, especially those at weekly tournaments, were becoming increasingly reluctant to support the game, convinced that the mass exodus of big names meant there wasn't enough of a scene to make supporting the title worthwhile. It was becoming increasingly hard for those interested in the game to find a place to hone their skills. While the weekly LAN scene was starting to die down, things for MVCI Online was looking up, and this was thanks to the one thing that the game had over many of its competitors: stable netcode.
Oh my god, is this gonna actually kill? I think, well no, Thor's a big thick. Yes!
Unlike its main competitor, DBFZ, MVCI utilized rollback netcode, allowing for a much smoother online experience. This made it possible for competitions to be held online in a semi-stable and consistent way, unlike some of the more popular fighters like Street Fighter V and Smash Ultimate. This superior online infrastructure soon gave rise to several digital weeklies created by people hungry for more MVCI competition. This includes community figureheads like Jackoman, organizer of the Clash of the Stones tournament, as well as DonCon and Ralston Arcade, who run the Gauntlet tournament series out of Nova Scotia, Canada.
We're going to have a small FGC. You probably never heard of us. We're like far East Coast province, and we're all getting old. So I'm like, okay, instead of running like a local, try to find somewheres or doing it out of your house or something, let's just do an online local. The online's good. Let's do an online local, play games with the boys, have a tournament once a week. Boom. So first 5 weeks, like the numbers plummeted, right? Like I think at best we have like 10 people, and then it's dropping down to like 5 or 6, and like we're really struggling. And myself and Cataclysm, we're all in on this, and like I say, we really want to keep playing this game and keep enjoying it. So one day I just said, no one wants to sign up. You guys want to be bums or chumps? Okay, fine, I'll go find other people. So I just go and I post it on Reddit.
The Gauntlet experienced a swell of participation. Future top players like Macho and Bane Hollow began to show up and train, and helped form the foundation of the fledgling online scene. The Gauntlet and Clash for the Stones gave MVCI players a home and a testing ground by which true competitors and new blood alike could grind in anticipation of the 2018 major circuit, which despite its declining popularity, would still be hosting MVCI tournaments throughout the year. Throughout the first quarter of 2018, it wasn't uncommon to see various well-known FGC personalities sitting at the top of the standings. The likes of Sonic Fox, DKill Sage, and even Punk from Street Fighter V all showed up, claiming spots in the top 4s and top 8s of various majors. However, As the landscape slowly began to change and MVCI faithfuls started to figure out the game more, the standings started to look a little different. Players like Stealth, Dual Kevin, and Tayson started to place higher and higher. And by Combo Breaker 2018, the small but dedicated online community started to make a name for themselves. The first to do so was Bane Hollow, who managed to place 3rd at Combo Breaker 2018, beating out the likes of Jaywong, Supernoon, and placing just above Marvel 3 God, Chris G.
He's gonna get the pickup from here too.
Oh,
Yes,
no,
that should do it. Bane Hollow takes it off the draw.
Oh, he's like laughing, but he's salty.
The stage was set, the tide had shifted, and a couple months later, all eyes turned to EVO. Although MVCI had been snubbed from the main stage, they would still find success as a side event, maxing out their entry cap at 128 players. The love for Marvel was present, and it was time for them to show their stuff.
Tyson is gonna take advantage.
Yeah, goes into the super, so there's no break, but finally is able to switch.
Okay, counter switch from
Yeah.
Tyson also.
And
Back to the neutral.
Yes, he wants to reestablish neutral, correct.
In the end, it was Japanese player Cyber who would walk away with the EVO championship, but it was Macho, who had been a part of the online community since almost day one, who proved himself to be among the top players in North America. In fact, many of the online warriors performed well, peppering the standings throughout the top 16 and bringing a lot of attention to the Gauntlet and its community. Soon after EVO, many of MVCI's other top players would make their way towards the Gauntlet, solidifying it as one of the pillars of the MVCI scene. Over the course of the following months, the Gauntlet would see its player numbers booming, and the level of competition skyrocketed. What started as a 6-man bracket now represented almost the entirety of the North American Marvel Infinite competitive scene. Up until this point, the Gauntlet had remained a largely unpaid tournament series, a free-to-enter event that was run by its creators and participated in by those who wanted nothing more than the thrill of competition. However, as the community continued to grow, DonCon and Ralston Arcade would be approached by Matcherino, a website modeled around creating monetization and crowdfunding opportunities for online events. With a new opportunity for income, the Gauntlet crew was able to take the step from being amateur TOs to hosting their own major. After weeks of marketing, promoting, and merchandising, Marvel had successfully gone back to its grassroots with the MVCI Fighting Regatta, the community's first online major. The bracket for the event was a veritable who's who of MVCI talent, featuring virtually all of the game's top players, running extremely smoothly for their first major event. Although the last 6 months have been extremely important for the development of the scene, retaining players is its own challenge faced by every community. The MVCI scene, however, has had a few more factors to contend with, not the least of which is its online nature. It can be incredibly hard to foster the same sense of camaraderie and community in an online format when you can't hang out or compete against other people face to face. So shortly after the success of the regatta, the Gauntlet crew focused on building the community through events outside of the typical weekly tournament format. These special events could be anything from the MVCI Jam Dunk contest, where players are given infinite meter and no restrictions to make the coolest combos they can imagine, or a character battle where specialists of a specific character face off to see who is the best in a tournament of mirror matches. While these are all special and engaging in their own right, the king of them all has to be the Battle of Mortals event that premiered in March of 2019. A tournament designed to give the spotlight to players who normally don't get to enjoy it.
Like, basically, to make the criteria, you can't be a top 8 player. So if you made a top 8 in the Gauntlet, we would have been at Gauntlet 30 by this time, you're invalid. You can watch and cheer these guys on, right? And they did too to the community, right? Like, they still tuned in, they still cheered these guys on. We created a new champion. He won it with the super low tier team, and like, it gives you a unique perspective. The gameplay was still top notch. Can't remember if we did a Matcherino for it or not, but we definitely gave away an arcade stick for the winner.
These kinds of creative events help to keep everyone in the community engaged, entertained, and ultimately valued. It also helped to push the community through one of its more trying periods, as many of the LAN majors that were the lifeblood of every FGC event started to drop MVCI for good. By the end of 2019, the only tournaments that were still supporting MVCI were the ones that were large enough to support pretty much every game, like Combo Breaker, and those that specialized in Marvel, like Undefeated. Although dwindling, the tournaments that did support the game continued to have fairly successful turnouts, largely thanks to the continued efforts of the online community to keep the game alive. At the end of 2019, the Gauntlet crew came together once again to bring about another special event for their scene. It was called the MVCI Year-End Awards, and would eventually become an annual show meant to celebrate their online community and the people in it.
We did the first one 2019 year-end awards.
And then we did 2020.
And then we did
like,
2020.
So like half the awards are like real awards, like most improved player and rookie of the year and stuff like that. And then there's other ones that are like best rivalry.
While the MVCI crowd certainly deserved to pat themselves on the back, the show also seemingly marked the end of an era. Despite the best efforts of everyone involved, the LAN presence of MVCI seemed to be on its last legs. In January of 2020, Frosty Faustings turned out to be the last major to bring in decent numbers due to the onset of the global pandemic. But while other FGC competitive scenes were irreparably damaged by not being able to host LAN events, the opposite was true for MVCI.
2020 was a great year for Marvel Infinite, probably the best year for player growth and tournaments and all that kind of stuff. Like early in the pandemic, the Gauntlet is getting 50 to 60 people a week. For example, the Regatta Second Impact was February 2020, like literally right before it started. And we raised, how much? We raised like $1,600 for the prize.
Yeah, it was like $1,600.
Thanks to their years of experience in hosting online events, the MVCI community was able to host more tournaments and make them bigger than ever before. In April of 2020, just after the start of the pandemic, the Gauntlet hit its 100th weekly tournament. And to celebrate, DonCon and Ralston Arcade turned it into their biggest major to date, bringing in a pot bonus more than double the size of their first regatta and fielding a bracket filled with everyone of note still active in the scene.
In reality, we aren't getting from anybody, right? Like other games, like you'll have big tournaments backing you. There's like known sponsored players, and we don't have any of that. Like we have zero. So everything we have to do, we have to create in-house. So like I like we're gonna do our best to make it as special as possible to the few people that we can actually reach.
At this point in its life, it's clear that Infinite will probably never get the boom that was expected of it back when it was announced. But through hard work, determination, grit, and no small amount of creativity, the MVCI scene has persevered and proven itself as one of the most solid and consistent grassroots scenes in the FGC.
People are paying Third Strike 20 years after it came out. You know what I mean? There's been 2 more Street Fighters and people are still playing Third Strike. You know what I mean? So like I think there's lots of growth and legs for the game in that kind of path where it may not be everyone's favorite version of the game, but it's the game that a lot of people really like and really have a passion for and will continue to drive the game forward and to grow it.
Although it lacked financial success at launch, and for this reason will probably never get a sequel, you can be sure that thanks to people like DonCon, Ralston Arcade, and Jackoman, as well as dozens of other dedicated players, that Marvel will continue to live on. After all, it's Marvel, baby! Yeah, he said the thing. He said the thing. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to Jason, Foxy, Lyra, Mauve, Nate, Nathan, Oshayo, Rashad, Sierra, Shampoo Weebu, and Spartacus for being platinum supporters. And an extra special shout out to Mookie, Noodles, Marco, and Steven for being diamond supporters. Thanks guys, we appreciate it. If you also want to support our channel and unlock perks, check out the Patreon link in the description below, or join our Discord server. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah, thanks for watching.